The US and China are like two elephants in a room. When they fight, the whole world shakes. Recently there have been whispers of peace talks. This is big news. It could mean a new era of cooperation. Both countries have slapped heavy taxes on each other's goods. These are called tariffs. They were as high as 145% on some Chinese products coming into America. Imagine paying almost double the price for something. The tariffs haven't been good for anyone. They've hurt businesses and made things more expensive. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent even called them unsustainable. In a hopeful sign, both sides have agreed to a 90-day reduction in tariffs. This news has already given a boost to the U.S. stock market. The Dow Jones, Nasdaq, and S&P 500 have all gone up. However, even with the reduction, import duties are still high. The economic slowdown is expected to continue. But, if the talks are successful and tariffs are lifted completely, it could be a game changer. Businesses could breathe a sigh of relief. Consumers could see prices go down, and the global economy could get a much-needed shot in the arm. The US and China are still figuring things out, but the fact that they are talking is a good sign. It shows that they are both willing to find a way to work together. Let's hope that this is the start of a beautiful friendship. Syria has been through a lot. Years of war have devastated the country. Now there's a new government in place led by Ahmed al-Sharaa. But the US hasn't officially recognized this government yet. This is partly because al-Sharaa's group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS, is still considered a terrorist organization by the US. The US has had sanctions on Syria for a long time, imposed during the rule of President Assad. These sanctions have made life difficult for ordinary Syrians. Now, there's talk that the US might lift these sanctions. Why the change of heart? Well, it seems Russia's interest in Syria has waned. They're a bit preoccupied with the ongoing war in Ukraine. This might have given the US some breathing room to reconsider its stance on Syria. Lifting the sanctions could be a way for the US to exert its influence in the region. The situation in Syria is complex. There are many players with their own agendas. But the possibility of the US lifting sanctions is a significant development. It could be a chance for Syria to start rebuilding after years of conflict. Former President Trump is on the move again. He's currently on a tour of the Middle East, visiting key allies like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. He's also attending a big summit in Riyadh. This trip is interesting for a few reasons. First, it shows that Trump still wants to be a player in the Middle East, even though he's not in the White House anymore. Second, the timing of the trip is significant. It comes at a time when the US is trying to figure out its strategy in the region. The war in Ukraine has changed the geopolitical landscape, and the US is trying to adapt. Trump's trip could offer some clues about what he thinks the US should do next. Third, and perhaps most importantly, the trip could have implications for the US's stance on Syria. Trump has hinted that he might be open to lifting sanctions on Syria. A visit to the Middle East where he can talk to regional leaders could solidify his thinking on this issue. The world is changing, the old order is crumbling, and new alliances are being formed. The US and China are trying to figure out how to coexist in this new world. The war in Ukraine has upended decades of peace in Europe, and the Middle East remains a powder keg. In these uncertain times, diplomacy is more important than ever. The US needs to engage with other countries, even those it doesn't always agree with. The potential thaw in US-China relations is a positive sign. The possibility of the US lifting sanctions on Syria, while controversial, could open up new avenues for dialogue. The road ahead will be bumpy, there will be setbacks and disagreements. But if countries can find ways to work together, there is hope for a more peaceful and prosperous future.